The black woman publicly scolded by her restaurant manager until the company chairman walked in and called her his business partner. They say dignity is free. But when Jade dropped a tray of wine glasses, the price of hers seemed to skyrocket in front of 50 strangers. The stemware shattered on the marble floor. So did her silence. Jade Morgan had been working at Maison Leclerc for just under 3 weeks. It was a fancy French fusion spot tucked in the heart of Manhattan, sleek, sharp, and soaked in money. The kind of place where wine is described in paragraphs and menus don't have prices. She wasn't supposed to be here, not really. Not according to how people looked at her. Not with her deep umber skin and curls tucked beneath the standard-issue black cap. Her resume didn't scream luxury hospitality, but she was sharp, fast, and had an iron memory for table orders and French pronunciations. She needed this job. So, when the tray slipped from her hand, 6 glasses, 3 fill time seemed to fracture. The crash wasn't just loud. It was accusatory. Before the last glass even stopped spinning, Malcolm, the floor manager, was already stomping over, red-faced and ready. He didn't whisper. "You think this is the kind of place where we drop things?" He barked, eyes burning holes into her. "You're embarrassing this restaurant." Tables turned. Conversations died. Even the string quartet seemed to pause. Jade could feel 50 eyes stitching themselves into her skin. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, crouching to gather the pieces. But he wasn't done. "No, don't you sorry me. This isn't some fast food joint in Harlem. We hold standards here. Real standards." The words hit harder than the fall. "Harlem? Really?" Her hand froze mid-reach as a slow burn rose inside her chest. She caught the glance of a couple at table 7, older, white, wealthy. The woman gave a small, polite smile. "Pity." Jade stood up straight, shards of glass still at her feet. "I'll clean it," she said softly. "Damn right you will. You can mop too while you're at it. Maybe next time you'll carry a tray like someone who belongs here." Laughter from table 5. Not loud, just enough. Jade bit the inside of her cheek so hard she tasted blood. She didn't cry. Not yet. But then the door chimed, and in walked a man who changed everything. He wore a charcoal suit, tailored to perfection, and carried himself like someone who didn't need to speak to command a room. He was older, perhaps mid-60s, with silver at his temples and a calm, anchored gaze. His presence caused even Malcolm to pause. "Good evening," the man said, his voice like polished mahogany. Jade's heart jumped. She knew him, or rather knew of him, Marcus King, chairman of K&J Hospitality Group, the umbrella that owned Maison Leclerc and 22 other elite establishments. The man who, according to industry rumor, hadn't stepped foot in a single one in years. Yet here he was, looking at her. "Mr. King," Malcolm stammered, quickly moving forward. "We weren't expecting you. Can you get you a table?" But King didn't answer. His eyes were on Jade. And then he smiled. "Jade Morgan," he said warmly, approaching her with a hand extended. "You're even more punctual than your emails suggest. It's good to finally meet my business partner in person." Silence fell like snow. Jade blinked. Malcolm blinked harder. "You're your what?" the manager croaked. King turned to him, expression cool. "My partner. Jade and I have been working on the new K&J community outreach concept. She's co-leading it with me. We were set to meet next week to finalize some concepts, but I had a free evening and thought I'd come surprise her." Instead, he gestured loosely toward the broken glass. Jade hadn't moved. Her mouth was slightly open. King looked at her gently. "You all right?" She nodded, or tried to. He turned back to Malcolm. "I'd like a word. In private." Malcolm paled. Jade stood in the middle of a luxury restaurant, shattered glass at her feet, hands trembling, while the air seemed to shift around her. Someone at a nearby table whispered, "Did he say partner?" 15 minutes later, the restaurant was still buzzing, but quieter now. Jade sat in the employee lounge, a hot tea in her hand courtesy of King himself. He had insisted on her sitting. He had insisted on the tea. "I'm sorry," he said calmly. I should have arrived sooner. I wanted to see how the culture here truly was. Clearly, we've got rot in the wood. Jade was still trying to find her voice. I don't understand, she said finally. Why me? Why this? King leaned forward. Because the way people like Malcolm treat people like you is exactly what I built this company to stop. You don't know this, but I grew up the son of a dishwasher. Black woman. Raised me on her own. I worked in restaurants my whole life. I've seen too many Jade Morgans break under managers like him. She looked at him. So, this partnership? Is real, he said. Your proposal for the community dining initiative? Brilliant. That's why I reached out. You just didn't know how deep my support would go. Jade felt her throat tighten. Thank you, she whispered. He smiled. Don't thank me. Make them watch you rise. And she would. But not as a waitress. As something much, much more. The next morning, Jade didn't put on her apron. Instead, she wore a navy blue blazer, fitted just right, and a simple cream blouse underneath. Her hair was pulled into a low twist, not tucked away but proudly displayed, thick and natural. When she stepped back into Maison Leclerc at 9 a.m., the same restaurant that had humiliated her less than 24 hours ago, she didn't come through the back. She walked through the front entrance. Every head turned. There were only a few early prep staff setting up for the brunch rush, but word had clearly traveled fast. A hostess blinked at her. One of the sous chefs muttered, "That's her." Someone dropped a spoon. Jade kept walking. In the corner near the wine bar, Malcolm was hunched over a clipboard. He didn't notice her until her heels clicked on the polished tile right beside him. He looked Yupan paled, again. "Jade," he said, as if trying to catch his footing mid-sentence. "I didn't expect. You'll be speaking with HR later today," she said, voice steady calm. "For now, Mr. King has asked me to begin assessments of all Maison Leclerc floor operations. I'll need full transparency on schedules, conduct reports, and incident logs from the past 6 months, including your own." Malcolm's mouth opened, then closed. "You're serious," he said. "I was publicly humiliated on your floor," Jade replied, tone flat. "I don't think I've ever been more serious." She didn't wait for his answer. By noon, Jade was sitting in what used to be the manager's office, now hers, temporarily going through files, employee testimonies, and footage from security cams. What she found was worse than she expected. Malcolm wasn't just a racist. He was systematic. Black and Latino workers were given the worst shifts, the least lucrative tables. Women were spoken to differently. One waitress, Anna, had a written warning on her record for being overly emotional when Malcolm cornered her over tips. Another waiter had been fired for being too assertive when asking for fair scheduling. Jade began compiling a list. Names, incidents, patterns. When Marcus King called at 3 p.m., she had a report ready. "She did what?" he said, voice rising slightly when she detailed Anna's situation. "She's not the only one," Jade said. "This isn't just one bad manager. It's a culture of quiet abuse. And it's not unique to this location." King exhaled on the other end of the line. "You were right," he said. "About everything." Jade leaned back in the manager's leather chair. The room smelled like citrus cleaner and old ego. "What do we do next?" she asked. There was a long pause. "Then, we burn it down." 3 weeks later, K&J Hospitality launched a press release. The words were precise, sharp, and clear. "We are launching the K&J Equity Initiative, led by newly appointed Director of Community Relations, Jade Morgan. Effective immediately, our company will begin a sweeping audit of all restaurant locations, management structures, and employee feedback systems. Discrimination has no place in our kitchens or dining rooms. We are not just correcting the record, we are rewriting it." The announcement caused a stir. Not just in Manhattan. Not just in the restaurant world. Everywhere. Blogs ran with it. From waitress to director, the Jade Morgan story. Luxury hospitality meets social justice. A tray dropped, and the industry shifted. Some skeptics sneered. It's a PR stunt, one pundit said on a finance podcast. This King guy's just trying to save face. But others knew better. Because change started showing up. Maison Leclerc rehired former employees who'd been unfairly let go. Malcolm was terminated not just for the outburst but for years of abusive conduct. Jade's new title gave her the authority to interview employees across all 23 K&J locations. She visited restaurants in Atlanta, Chicago, Boston, and LA, documenting stories that mirrored her own. Whispered slurs, coded language, invisible ceilings. And everywhere she went, she didn't enter from the back. She walked in the front. Every time. 6 months after the incident, Jade returned to Maison Leclerc for dinner not as staff, not as management, but as a guest. She wore a deep red dress that made her feel unshakable. She didn't come alone. Anna was with her. So was Aaron, one of the former line cooks Malcolm had tried to blackball. Marcus King joined them halfway through dessert. The hostess, a young white woman who'd just been hired, greeted her with a smile. "Good evening, Ms. Morgan. Your table's ready. Right by the window, just as requested." Jade smiled. "Thank you." They were seated where table 5 used to be, the one that laughed. As they ate, laughter returned, but this time, it was hers. It was free, unafraid. No pity in the air. No glances of discomfort. Halfway through the meal, a young black girl in a server's uniform approached the table. She looked nervous. "Ms. Morgan?" she asked. Jade turned. "I just wanted to say, thank you. My name's Deja. I started here 2 months ago. I heard what happened. I wouldn't have applied here if not for you." Jade's eyes softened. "You're welcome," she said. "But you earned your place here. Don't let anyone make you question that." Deja nodded, cheeks glowing with pride. As she walked away, Marcus raised his glass. "To the new culture," he said. Jade raised hers. "To never staying quiet again." Over the following year, Jade Morgan became more than a symbol, she became a movement. The K&J Equity Initiative began delivering real, measurable change. Jade didn't settle for boardroom slogans. She fought for policies, not platitudes. She created a zero-tolerance framework for discriminatory behavior that required all locations to undergo quarterly audits with rotating secret audits by anonymous reviewers. Complaints could be filed directly to her office without going through local managers. Promotions were reviewed for fairness and transparency. Training programs on racial bias and workplace equity became mandatory across every property. Some managers left. Some had to, but others stayed and grew. In Boston, a formerly hard-edged manager named Terrence wrote to her, "I used to think I was colorblind. Turns out I was just blind. Your training changed how I speak, lead, and listen. Thank you." In Chicago, a Ladings busboy named Marco, who'd been overlooked for years, became the location's new assistant floor manager. He sent her a picture of his mom holding the promotion letter. In LA, a trans woman who'd quit due to harassment was rehired and later promoted to head server. "You gave me the courage to return," she wrote. But not every story was easy. At one upscale location in Miami, the GM refused to comply with the new policies. He manipulated reviews, buried complaints, and held a wine and caviar managers only meeting where he made mocking remarks about diversity quotas. Jade flew there personally. She didn't schedule a meeting. She just showed up, clipboard in hand, suit crisp, silence deadly. The GM tried to laugh her off. He lasted 3 more hours before he was escorted out by security. By the time she returned to New York that night, exhausted but proud, she found a handwritten note waiting for her on her office desk. It was from Marcus King. "Jade, every empire needs a sword. Thank you for being ours. MK." A year and a half after that tray shattered, Forbes ran a feature titled, "The Reformer: How Jade Morgan is Rewriting the American Hospitality Playbook." They photographed her standing in front of the first K&J Community Dining Centera low-cost, fine dining-style restaurant in the Bronx that served fresh, chef-cooked meals to low-income families and individuals. No tipping, no dress code, just dignity and warmth. It was Jade's idea. A place where kids from working-class neighborhoods could taste salmon confit and crème brûlée, where waiters treated them like VIPs. She called it Maison pour tout, house for all. Her mother came to the opening night in a flowered blouse, clutching tissues in both hands. She'd cleaned houses for most of her life, often looked down on, often invisible. But that night, she was seated at the center table, with applause rising around her. Jade introduced her to the crowd. My mother taught me that where you eat doesn't define your worth. She taught me to sit up straight even when no one was looking. So tonight, we honor her and every person who's ever been told they don't belong. People wept, including the chef. But the real test came when a national franchise offered Jade a multi-million-dollar contract to leave K&J and build a diversity division for them. The offer came with stock, a seat on their board, and a national campaign with her face on billboards. Jade thought about it hard, and then she said no, because she'd learned something crucial. Change isn't made by chasing applause. It's made by standing your ground, even when the floor shakes beneath you. 2 years to the day after the incident at Maison Leclerc, Jade stood once again in the very same spot where the tray had dropped. The restaurant had changed. Gone were the white linens that once screamed exclusivity. In their place, vibrant color palettes from across global cuisines, curated by a diverse team of chefs. Even the wine descriptions were rewritten, now shorter, bolder, more inclusive. Less pretension, more poetry. The waitstaff was multicultural, multigendered, and unafraid. And standing with her at the center of the dining room was Deja, the young black girl who'd once nervously thanked her. Only now, Deja was the general manager. I'm proud of you, Jade said, voice thick with emotion. Deja smiled. You made it possible. Jade looked around the room, at the laughter, the confidence, the shared pride. I didn't do this alone. That night, as Jade walked home through the summer streets of Manhattan, warm air brushing her cheeks, she thought back to the first night, the crash, the sting of shame, the cruel words, and then she thought about how it ended, with a title, with truth, with her head held high. Change, she realized, doesn't always arrive with noise. Sometimes it enters quietly, through the front door, uninvited, unapologetic. And sometimes it walks in wearing a suit and calls you partner. The end.